All right. Good morning. This is Jeff Orrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield. We're going to walk through the weather briefing here. Today is March 3rd, and we'll kind of focus on the weather threats here for this week and what we looks like is going to go on. Let me get to the next slide here. I'm not going to read through all the bullets. You all received the briefings. You've kind of seen what's going on here this week. We can kind of continue to be in an active weather pattern. Things really haven't changed, and honestly, we're probably going to be in this active pattern for a while. And I kind of just stepped through the fronts here, kind of what's going on today. Today is really a pretty day here on Monday. High pressure's right overhead. That's why we had such a cold morning this morning with the temperatures. You're really getting well into the 20s. I know in Smithfield, where I live, it was 22 degrees this morning, and some places were in the teens as you pushed further inland. So really cold this morning, really cold, high pressure overhead. It is going to slowly shift east. By the time we get into later on tonight, you see that high pressure starting to move off the coast. And by the time we get into Tuesday morning, the high is definitely off the coast. So now you're starting to see, with that clockwise flow, some of that warmer air starting to maybe return from the Gulf of Mexico, starting to make its way north. So things will slowly start to warm as we get through Tuesday, and then especially on Wednesday, temperatures will continue to warm up. As we get into Wednesday morning, what you notice here is this storm system that was coming across the deep south. And in fact, if I back it back up to here, right to basically Tuesday evening, you can kind of see a pretty potential system here with a really severe weather coming across the Gulf Coast. And that is going to actually start to lift up. This warm front that you see down here across Georgia is going to lift up here into Virginia. And by Wednesday morning, you see that warm front has started to lift north. So this is around 7 a.m. on Wednesday. So that warm air is going to come back pretty quickly, along with some pretty deep Gulf moisture and all that streaming up ahead of a really strong cold front. You see this really intense low pressure system that's going to be moving up into the Great Lakes, and you have these trailing cold fronts behind there. And so that's going to come together to maybe give us a little bit of a risk of severe weather, which we'll talk about. This cold front does come through really quickly later on Wednesday, and by Thursday morning, that front is pushed way offshore, and the low pressure system is lifting north of the Great Lakes. But then what you notice on Thursday is you see these tight lines here across Virginia and going all the way back up here to Canada. So really strong northwest winds gusting behind the front, bringing in some cooler air. So Wednesday is going to be breezy with the low pressure system approaching from the west with the south wind, southwest wind. And then Thursday is going to be windy with a northwest wind as the cold air rushes back in and the cold front moves offshore. So that's Thursday morning. Get into Friday morning, and then kind of things start to settle down again for late week. Going to have some nice weather here by Friday with high pressure kind of coming back in control. Get in here to about Saturday morning, and you see another little weak cold front trying to sneak through here for the weekend. May bring us a few little scattered showers, nothing too significant, maybe just some reinforcing cold air. As we get into Sunday morning, you see that front has pushed offshore and kind of starting to stall out, and another front to our north kind of stalling out here on Sunday. So even though it could be, I don't want to say unsettled this weekend, we could see a little bit of light scattered showers briefly as that front comes through Saturday, but not as strong as what we're going to experience here on Wednesday. That's going to be a pretty strong cold front. So getting into kind of the headline for the week, there is a risk of severe storms really across the entire region. It really runs from the Blue Ridge east all the way to the coast. Right now it's still pretty far out right now in time. And so, we can't really dial it in but so much. But generally looks like this area, it's going to be a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere. So we call that a high shear low cape. So meaning that a lot of shear in the atmosphere. We may have a little bit of instability. And so if those can come together, we could definitely see some damaging winds, maybe even a few isolated tornadoes, given how much shear there's going to be in the atmosphere. Hail is probably not a big concern right now. There could be a little bit of hail if we can establish some updrafts, but I think it's mainly going to be wind is going to be what we're going to be watching out for, and maybe a few isolated tornadoes. If some of these updrafts will start to spin, the question is going to be if they can hold together long enough to try to maybe get some longevity where they might be able to produce a quick touchdown. So we'll be watching that. I'll kind of throw in, and granted, this is just one model. This is actually looking at the NAM, and I know it's, I don't want to get too technical with folks, but I'll step this ahead in time. So this is actually getting us into a Tuesday afternoon. I just want you to see how that system's coming across Louisiana there and the Gulf of Mexico. And if you can continue to move this system ahead in time, you start to see that band of showers and storms maybe pushing into the western parts of Virginia here This is kind of getting into early morning hours there on Wednesday. And so at the same time, we're going to have a good southerly flow ahead of the front, ahead of the band of showers. So we should be able to warm up and maybe become a little bit more unstable. It takes a while. This is actually about 7 a.m. Here on Wednesday. So we're most of our areas well ahead of the front. Got some good warm air coming up from the south. Maybe get a few little mix of sun and clouds in here. So we may be able to warm up pretty quickly on Wednesday, especially before Wednesday afternoon, before this line gets to us. So by the time we get to this is about 1 o'clock, or excuse me, this is 10 o'clock in the morning there on Wednesday. The line is still kind of west of us, so it kind of sneaks in here right in the afternoon. This is, I'd say, between 1 and 3 o'clock, let's say. And so if we can get some good heating in the afternoon before this actual line gets here, we could actually see some a little better heavy showers and maybe even a few rumbles of thunder. And given the amount of shear in the atmosphere, could give us some wind damage and those isolated tornadoes. So here you see it kind of getting right into Richmond, maybe just east of Richmond. I'd say between 1 and 3 o'clock is kind of the best time frame for that. And you can kind of see how it really is. Looks like it's mainly central Virginia south, maybe where you see some of these yellows and some of these higher reflectivities. And again, this is just a model simulation. As we push into about 4 or 5 o'clock, 4 to 6 o'clock, you can kind of see here starting to push more towards maybe Hampton Roads and the Bay. And we'll see how much activity we see. We'll have some of the higher res models starting to capture this later this afternoon and especially tomorrow. So we'll be able to time this in and maybe get an idea of how intense some of these heavier showers or thunderstorms might be. This could be a situation where even a good heavy shower could actually produce a pretty good gust of wind and maybe even get some rotation in it. So this may not be a high lightning situation, but it could be a situation where you could still have wind and isolated tornadoes without a lot of lightning. So we'll watch out for that. But that's here Wednesday evening. I'd say between 4 and 6 o'clock, and you continue to move it ahead. You do see a second line does try to develop here across central Virginia in the evening. So we'll watch out for that. It could just be some gusty showers that develop where the main line of severe weather is now starting to push off the eastern shore here in the evening. So this is about 7 o'clock in the evening there on Wednesday. And as you continue to move ahead, you see that second thin little band of showers. That's the true cold front coming through. And so that could still be some pretty gusty winds, I think, in that second band of showers that pushes through. So I do think we'll have an initial band with the heavier rain and maybe the stronger winds and the isolated tornadoes possible. And then that second band of showers that comes through with the actual front, that could actually allow the wind to kick back up again. And then eventually everything moves offshore and things clear out later on Wednesday night. So that's kind of just the timing of it. We'll continue to fine tune this. We'll see if the area changes. But again, the question is going to be that warm air surging north on the east side of the Blue Ridge Wednesday afternoon. And can we destabilize enough to get some decent heavy showers and maybe a few thunderstorms going that could produce severe weather? And that is the big story this week. Other big story is going to be the wind. It is going to be getting pretty windy. And so kind of what you're seeing here on the left is the peak wind gust forecast there through takes us through Wednesday and Thursday. So Wednesday and Thursday are both going to be pretty windy. Notice here on the right for a lot of the different cities, a little bit of a south wind increasing on Tuesday, gusting up to maybe 15 to 20. But if you look, pretty much everybody by Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening is really gusting to about 30, 35 miles an hour. Few places I wouldn't be shocked to see gusts of 40, even in Richmond. Could we get a gust of 40 to 43 miles an hour? Definitely possible. There could be a lot of wind in the atmosphere. Closer to the coast, I think you are going to see gusts of 40 to 45 miles an hour. I think that's going to be more given. But even inland, I think gusts in the low 40s are definitely possible. And it's windy all day. So you see here by noon on Wednesday, we're windy. Even at 6 o'clock, we're still really windy. Right ahead of the front, maybe right as the front's coming through, the winds decrease a little bit here for late Wednesday night. But then when that cold air surges in on Thursday, you see the north winds increase again. Not as strong, gusts maybe 25 to maybe 35 miles an hour, depending on where you are on Thursday. But Thursday's still going to be, again, a pretty breezy day. And that lasts even into Friday morning, especially in areas close to the coast. You're still seeing gusts. It's about 30 to 35, near the coast on early Friday morning. And then the winds do decrease later on the day on Friday. We don't have as much wind. It's still a little bit breezy with that second front on Saturday, but that's further away. So I'm not too concerned about that. Just realize Wednesday is going to be windy. Probably not to the level of wind advisories. For wind advisories, we would need more constant gust around 45 miles per hour. I don't think we're going to get there. I do think that some people could see a single gust to 45 miles per hour, worst case, but it's not going to go 45 all day. I think for the most part, the numbers you're seeing here, anywhere from 30 to 35, is going to be more consistent as far as the winds on Wednesday. And then you might get one gust that gets up to, let's say, the low to mid 40s. And so for that reason, I would not anticipate a wind advisory. If we did have one, you can kind of see here in the Maryland Eastern Shore, we do have a little bit maybe more winds getting up to maybe 40, 45 up there more consistently. So we'll have to watch out up there. If we were to have a wind advisory, that might be the most likely area that we could potentially see one. So we'll see how that plays out. Stay tuned. I did want to throw this in there. Even though we got a couple band of showers coming through, you guys saw how fast it comes through. And so there's no risk of really flooding. We could see some brief heavy rain with those showers and a few thunderstorms as they come through, a good burst of rain, but nothing that's going to actually cause any flooding. So the heavy rainfall flooding potential, even here on Wednesday, it really are not expecting any kind of significant flooding. Probably not even going to get any localized flash flooding. Just don't think the rain's going to last long enough. So these are the rainfall totals, for the event. Pretty much a widespread ½ inch to an inch out of those two band of showers. So I think on average, probably closer to maybe a ½ inch across the area. Some places could be a little bit less, to be honest with you. Kind of who the winners and losers, who gets the most rain, who gets these less. But generally, I'd say a ½ inch, no more than an inch. I think an inch would probably be on the very high side. So I think average is closer to a half as far as rainfall totals. And when you look at the next 7 days, most of the rain that we're expecting obviously is coming through on Wednesday. So pretty much, again, right around that ½ inch of rain here in Richmond, maybe a little bit more here further south, especially as you get in northeast North Carolina. Maybe we can start to push that inch or so in the darker green areas. But the bulk of the rain that we're going to see really for the next 7 days is coming through with those quick little band of showers there on Wednesday. And then we're generally pretty dry, other than maybe just some scattered showers on Saturday. So this is the bulk of our moisture coming through. We do need these wetting rains with some frequency to keep the fuel moistures from getting too low. So, if we stay dry for too long, that fire danger is going to start to really increase on us. But this is our wettest day on Wednesday of the whole week. So looking at the temperatures throughout the entire week, you can see today is definitely the coldest of the week. Warmer than yesterday, but still the coldest of this week. But then you look at Wednesday, how warm those temperatures get. So again, this is kind of why we have that risk of severe weather. When you see these temperatures, you really need temperatures in the 60s. You need some heating. And so with all these temperatures generally in the 60s to even maybe approaching 70 across the area, that's going to maybe give us a little bit of instability that can play with that wind shear to get maybe a few of those more intense showers and maybe a few thunderstorms going. So that's what we're going to be watching out for. And temperatures really do rebound here on Wednesday. But that front comes through Wednesday night, and you can definitely tell Thursday is cooler. Not as cold as today, but you can definitely see those temperatures drop there for Thursday and Friday. And then ahead of that next front on Saturday, we could still warm back up into the 60s. But if that front sneaks through here later Saturday evening and Saturday afternoon, and then you can see Sunday is quite a bit cooler with that next front coming through. So kind of that up and down roller coaster with temperatures. Same things happening with the lows. Tomorrow morning will be a pretty cool morning once again. But then we kind of rebound, and you just kind of see the overnight lows kind of bouncing up and down with the different fronts that are coming through. And just timing out the showers and storms here, you can tell our best chances really are going to be basically Wednesday afternoon and into Wednesday evening, really everywhere. And then things definitely dry out, I'd say Wednesday night. And by the time we get to Thursday, there really is no more chance of rain, just those dry, gusty northwest winds behind the front. And then you see that low chance of precipitation, I'd say late Saturday afternoon and maybe early Sunday morning. That's what that next cold front that's going to be sneaking through, maybe about 20-30% chance of rain. So that should be a drier front with the bulk of the rain coming in here on Wednesday and Wednesday evening. So shifting gears onto the marine side of the house on the waters, we are going to have small craft advisory conditions developing on Tuesday and probably going into gales. In fact, if I look at it day by day, here the first image here in the middle with the orange, that's the small craft advisory conditions that'll probably set up with the south wind starting to kind of increase there Tuesday afternoon, probably getting a little bit gusty later in the day. Nothing too bad, but we'll probably be right into small craft advisory conditions. And then Wednesday, especially Wednesday late morning to afternoon, you see a lot more red showing up here on the bay and along the coast. So that gets us into gale conditions. So It's probably going to be pretty gusty and getting pretty windy through the day. So we're probably going to have a really borderline, south winds gusting up to about 34 to, let's say, 36 knots. So should get pretty breezy in the afternoon and be right maybe on the cusp of gale conditions. We may be issuing gale watches later today to kind of get this going. Then that would mainly be, I'd say, late morning Wednesday through Wednesday afternoon. And then here on Thursday, you see even more red, so even more confidence and more widespread gale conditions. And that's really with that northwest wind. That front comes through, you get that cool blast of air. And so it does look like we'll see maybe a period there with some gale force winds here on the bay, as well as in the coastal coastal waters behind that front on Thursday. And then the winds do decrease for Friday. In fact, I think the small craft advisory conditions that you're seeing here in orange, that's probably more geared towards Friday morning. And I think as we push through the afternoon, those winds are going to be decreasing. And so this is kind of showing you the peak winds here. They're mainly on Wednesday and into early Thursday. We may end up having to bump these up on the bay. Right now we're peaking out maybe around 33, 34 knots on the bay and maybe up to 40 knots on the water. And we may end up having to increase these a little bit as we get a little bit closer in time. Like I said, we're kind of on the cusp of gale watches for the bay and for the coastal waters for late Tuesday and then going into Wednesday and Thursday. So we're kind of breaking it down day by day here. Again, you see those south winds really increasing everywhere, getting into those good small craft advisory conditions, maybe getting close into gales up here in the northern waters at Fenwick Island, maybe gusting up to 40 knots. And everybody else is getting really close to that 34 knots here at Chesapeake Lake, Chincoteague Shoal. Then we may get to see a little bit, the south wind really blows ahead of the front. As the front comes through, you see a temporary decrease in the winds here, late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, and then the cold front comes through Thursday morning. But then it takes just maybe a little bit of time, and then that cold air really starts to surge in, and you see some stronger winds here late Thursday night, early Friday morning, maybe gusting all the way up to 40 knots. And so this is that cold air surging in. So might be able to get a marginal gale with the south wind late Wednesday evening. Decrease in the winds there briefly Thursday morning, and then the winds really start to crank back up late Thursday and into Thursday night, early Friday morning with that surge of cold air. So you kind of see those winds going up and down. And we do kind of keep some small craft advisory conditions going even here on Saturday. You see some wind gusts here, 20 knots, especially on the bay. So we'll see if we could have some prolonged small craft advisory conditions even going into the weekend. Good news is looking ahead for folks that are ready for winter to be over, at least for the next 8 to 14 days, got a really strong signal that we'll see above normal temperatures. Doesn't mean we may still have a few systems coming through producing some wind. So we're going to have to watch out for maybe potential fire conditions periodically, especially over the next couple of weeks. It's that time of year. It looks like after Wednesday, things do get kind of dry for a little while, so that could dry out our fuel moisture. So if it gets warm like this and we stay dry, we could definitely increase our fire potential, especially if we start to see some wind in there as well with no rain. And if you look at the rain on the right-hand side, pretty much equal chances of normal precipitation, maybe slightly above normal, not a big signal there. And the pattern does stay active with some periodic weak fronts and then another surge of warm air, and we'll just have to see. If we don't get enough rain, that could start to cause some fire danger issues here in the future. So we'll still stay tuned on that. And that's all that we had for this briefing. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.